Hello everybody, and welcome back to another video. In today's video, I'll be taking a look at the reports that came out last night, the Biden press conference, and everything that's really unfolded over the course of the past 24 hours. And I'll be talking in this video about electability because that's what this channel is about. I might next video talk a bit more in detail about Biden, but in today's video, I want to focus on electability. And the question I'll be dealing with today is Joe Biden still one of the better realistic nominees Democrats have for 2024? And I am now more confident than I have ever been that the answer to that question is no. I'm going to get into it in a second here, but first I do kind of owe you guys an apology. I haven't posted in like 2 weeks almost, and obviously that wasn't unintentional. I would have liked to have posted at least a couple times in that 2 week span, but I was not able to because of my schedule and whatnot. Just life will do that to you sometimes. But it's fine. I will try to post more in the future. I cannot make any promises, but I'm going to try to not have a 2 week drought ever again. But again, my sincerest apologies, and I will now move forward with the video. So, in case you missed it, just to kind of fill you in, last night, there were some reports that came out from the special counsel, and they kind of got into, among other things, Joe Biden's conduct in the past. There were some pretty damning allegations of things he did as vice president and, information and documents he handled, whatnot. And I would encourage you all to read that or at least skim it or read a fair interpretation of it because I think it is important, and especially if you're a voter, it's good to be educated about these things, and you should do the same thing for Trump. By the way, you should always read, or not read the full thing because they're usually very long and very boring and difficult to read. But at the very least, read or have a good understanding of what the special counsel is indicating for both Trump and Biden. In this case, we'll be talking about Biden and electability. But do read Trump's. That's not the point of this video, even though I will scrutinize Biden a lot in this video. So today I want to talk about, like I said, beginning electability, and I think that among the more conduct-related issues raised by the special counsel in the report from yesterday, there were some legitimate questions about his age and his ability to function mentally. So there was a story. I again did not read the full thing. I didn't have time to do that, and again, it's a long report. But my understanding of the concerns as it relates to age, which I'll be focusing on in today's video, was that Biden, in multiple instances, came off as well-meaning. Maybe he's a nice guy, but he doesn't have it anymore. And there were, some other things that kind of added to this, like in the press conference he did last night, he confused the president of Egypt with the president. I think he said the president of Egypt was the president of Mexico. Very bad mistake. There's a report that he didn't know what year his son died, Beau Biden, which is, I would say, not the best indicator of where he is mentally, because obviously people who deal with trauma and grief tend to potentially, kind of lock those memories in a box. It's not something that I can necessarily relate to. I, have not had an experience like the one Joe Biden had with losing his son. It's a very personal thing, and I think people need to be a bit more sensitive when dealing with it. Regardless, not a great look for him, even though I'm not going to really touch it for the remainder of the video. I just did want to mention it because I know a lot of people have been talking about that. But it's more the concerns about things related, or the things, mentioned or at least alluded to in the report, which essentially say Biden doesn't have it anymore, and that, he's a nice guy, he might be a good president, but he's not, capable of functioning. And there are legitimate questions about that. Joe Biden will turn 80 in November. He will run for president in the November, I believe, 4th election, or no, I think it's the November 6th election. And then he will turn 80 around Thanksgiving. I don't know his exact birthday, but I know it happens, around Thanksgiving every year. So he will turn 80 a couple weeks after the election, win or lose. And so for that reason, we have to remember that he's going to be, going on. Yeah, well, he will be 85 when he leaves, if he wins re-election when he leaves, because he'll leave office in January 2029. He's born in November 1942. So, yeah. Well, no. He'll be 86. Yeah, he'll be 86 in 2 months. if my math is right, which is that's possible it's wrong because I'm not good at mental math, but 86 years old leaving office in January 2029. So that's really old. That is like 8 years above, I think 7 years above the average life expectancy for the average American. And that's also just like, no matter how you slice it, he is doing one of the hardest jobs you can ever do throughout human history. He's running the most powerful country in the world. He is doing so under conditions, that are not like, let's be real. Being president is stressful enough. Your stress is only exacerbated as a human being when you're running on, what I think the president, usually runs on 3 to 5 hours of sleep every night. They have so many different jobs, and, Biden will have to do an exhausting campaign if he is the nominee in the summer and fall of this year. And he will also have to deal with unforeseeable future challenges if he wins for the next 4.5 years, right? Like, his first term has already been chaotic. Every year he's had a crisis to deal with. 2021, you could say it was, getting out of COVID. Afghanistan, 2022, you could say it's Ukraine. You could say, 2023, kind of a mix of things, especially the conflict in Israel and Palestine. Like, there are a lot of issues that the president has to deal with. I think Biden's had a chaotic presidency. In his first 2 years, 2021, or first 3 years, 2021, 2022, 2023, were even more chaotic than the first 3 years that Trump had, which were chaotic too. 2017, 2018, 2019, I think don't even hold a candle to the first 3 years of Biden's presidency in terms of just how insane the world has been. And that's stress. That's, as a human being, that is added to you. That is a really, really important thing to remember when you're already 80 or 79 going on 80 years old. And so I think the average American's pretty uncomfortable with the idea of an 80, something-year-old guy running the country, especially until 2029. 2029 is a very long time from now. And I think when it comes down to it, I'm not sure if the average American would feel comfortable with Biden running the country in 2029. In fact, the average American right now thinks Joe Biden isn't mentally capable of handling the country. And I think that number, the percentage of Americans that think he's not capable, that number will spike when you ask them, do you think he'll be capable of running it in 3 years, 4 years, 5 years? And so for that reason, I think that Biden is a less electable option for Democrats than the alternatives. Now, Dean Phillips is the only remaining challenger to him in the primary that I think is worth talking about. I don't know if I'd rather Dean Phillips, or if I'm a Democrat, if I'd rather Dean Phillips be the nominee than Joe Biden. He's unknown. He's a random congressman who I think is doing this kind of as a power grab, name recognition type of thing. Obviously, he has every right to run. We live in a democracy. I encourage everyone to run, but we don't know Dean Phillips as well as I think we should, and he hasn't really gained any traction. He's, got embarrassed in South Carolina, and he had an okay showing in New Hampshire, but he didn't win anything. So Dean Phillips is out the picture, and that kind of leaves 3 options. There's Biden, there's Harris, then there's drafting someone at the convention. Now, drafting someone at the convention is the least likely option because it would be insane. It rarely happens in modern politics. It would, require Biden to stay in the race and, keep winning the primaries and be the presumptive nominee heading into the convention, and then having his delegates, or having some sort of vote of no confidence in him as a candidate, and then having the delegates of the DNC, spending, days drafting a new candidate. And that would likely be someone like Gretchen Whitmer, like Gavin Newsom, potentially someone from Raphael Warnock maybe. But I think Newsom would probably be the front runner. I don't know if he wants to be the nominee yet. I think he does have presidential aspirations. I think that's pretty clear. I think he wants to run for president in 2028 or 2032. But 2024, he's a guy that if Democrats at the convention wanted to draft someone, he'd probably be near the top of that list. Even if you don't think he's that great of a candidate, which he's not. By the way, Gavin Newsom is not that great of a candidate. He is, I think, better than Biden in terms of electability, but he is still a controversial, pretty progressive governor of a blue state that a lot of people have strong feelings towards. Like California is a very easy boogeyman. And so I think Democrats would have to be careful about a Newsom candidacy in the same way they have to be careful about anyone else, even though he would be better than Biden. So that kind of leaves, maybe unknown candidate gets drafted, which I don't think is too likely. That kind of leaves Biden and Harris as the 2 remaining options. And I think, right, if Biden's not going to be the nominee, we're going to know soon. because the more primaries he wins, the closer he gets to clinching just in terms of delegates, and he's winning big. Like he's not losing votes in these primaries. He did really well in New Hampshire. He did really, really well in South Carolina, and I think he did pretty well in Nevada too. And he's going to keep doing well, especially with Dean Phillips probably losing steam. So I'm going to say that unless Biden knows that he's going to drop out, or at least has some plan to drop out, he will probably be the nominee. So that kind of leaves, the only alternative would be Harris, taking the reins of the Democrats in the next 3 to 5 weeks, probably. I'd say maybe before the end of March, like maybe April Fool's Day is the deadline for that. And so unless that happens, we're going to see a Biden, candidacy, again, unless you believe there is a chance that Democrats at the convention drop Biden and draft someone else, which I don't think is likely for reasons I've just stated. But regardless, that would leave, that window, and going towards the end of March and beginning of April as the only realistic opportunity for Democrats to see a scenario in which Kamala Harris is the nominee or a non-Biden Democrat is the nominee. So Biden would have to drop out soon. He'd have to, likely endorse Harris and let her, assume the role of the presumptive nominee, because obviously Kamala Harris wouldn't lose to Dean Phillips in a primary. So that's what would have to happen. Now, this is all kind of to say that I think Joe Biden's going to be the nominee. It's unlikely that any of those things happen. There are scenarios that, maybe you think they're going to happen. Maybe there's a chance Joe Biden's going to be the nominee. And so Democrats are in a really bad position because of that. I think the average American is very uncomfortable with the idea of an 80-year-old man running the country, much less an 85, 86-year-old man running the country. And Trump's not popular. Trump is a bad candidate for the GOP, but I don't know if he would lose to Biden at this point. I really don't. I think Democrats have immense struggles with turnout. I think they would really see problems among swing voters who are concerned about age, because age is an issue that's been raised in polls. And I think that, for the first time ever, I think Kamala Harris might be a better candidate for the Democrats than Joe Biden. Now, the counter to this, and I've seen this with many people online who are still backing Biden, is the polls, because Biden still does poll better against Trump than Kamala Harris does, but I think that is sort of an illusion. And I don't know the exact numbers. Let's just pretend, poll A shows Trump beating Biden 47% to 44% and shows him beating Harris 47% to 42%. So Biden's doing a little better than Harris. I think that a lot of that comes from the fact that Biden supporters in a poll would say they're going to vote for Biden, obviously, and they wouldn't say they'd vote for Harris. But I think if Harris became the presumptive Democratic nominee, they would get behind her, and then she would have the united support of the Democratic base. And I think that among voters, where age is a concern, which is the majority of Americans, she'd obviously do better than Joe Biden, because she is not 80 years old. She's 50-something, and she's much more energetic. She's a better public speaker. I think she's a better debater, which is important. Debates are an underrated part of American politics. And I think that, this is another one of my takes that I've expressed over the course of the past few years. I think one of the reasons Trump lost the 2020 election was because he bungled the first debate when he really had a golden opportunity there. And again, I don't even know if Biden should want to debate Trump, because I think he would perform poorly. Whereas for Kamala Harris, I think that she would probably do better than Trump in a debate, even though I think she didn't do that well against Pence. I remember watching that debate. I thought she did all right. But I think she would do better against Trump in a debate than Biden would. So, and another part of this, by the way, is the campaign. To run a successful campaign, you have to give speeches, you have to give rallies, you have to be energetic, you have to gain momentum. I think Harris, even if you don't like her as a candidate, is better at that than Biden, 80-year-old Biden would be. So, Kamala Harris isn't this electoral, behemoth. She's not someone who I think would inspire a lot of confidence among Democrats, even if she did become the nominee. But I think she'd give them a better chance of beating Trump. I think that the fact that she's not 80 years old, the fact that she, would be able to present herself as an alternative to the political scene, which people have become so sick of over the course of the past 6-7 years. And both Biden, I think people is broadly unpopular. Everyone knows that. Trump has been in politics since 2015, and I think that he is also not popular, even though he, certainly has a base of loyal supporters. I think Harris just being a non-Biden or non-Trump figure really helps her. And I do think that she would have a better chance of beating Trump than Joe Biden would. So if I'm the Democrats, I'm wanting it to be Kamala Harris. I'm wanting Joe Biden to step down and, do it in a dignified way. Like he shouldn't have to do this in a way that's embarrassing to him. Like, he's been the president. He's served Democrats well. He beat Trump in an election. He is, responsible for a lot of good things if you're a Democrat. But I do think Kamala Harris is the better nominee. So those are my thoughts. Again, let me know what you think. I know that's kind of a controversial opinion to have right now. I know a lot of people still think Biden would be better than Kamala Harris, just because I think people really don't trust Kamala Harris to win an election. Again, not saying she's the strongest. I just think that she's better than the alternative. So, again, like I said, let me know what you think. Subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you all in the next video.